Hi everyone, this is Marin Hirsch here at NetElixir, Sales Manager. We're going to be starting momentarily with our presentation today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just waiting for a few more people to log into our presentation. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for joining us today on May 21st. Today we're going to be discussing at NetElixir the power of Google Analytics and how a $50 million business cut their cost per lead by 44%. So very quickly, here's a brief background about NetElixir. We are a highly technological and math-driven agency. We are a global search marketing agency located in Princeton, New Jersey. And to find out more about us, you can visit our website, NetElixir.com, and we invite you to follow us on Twitter at NetElixir. So here at NetElixir, we offer 3 different business lines of strategy, services, and technology. So on the services side, we offer everything from paid search and product listing ad management, as well as SEO, comparison shopping engines, social media optimization, and so on. Then we do have our own technology here. We offer an enterprise level of technology, as well as SEO and SEM technology for small businesses. And then we offer many consulting services as well. So the question is, why NetElixir? Well, first off, we're well known for the ability to build and apply mathematical models to drive incredible search marketing results. Actually, back in 2008, we built an in-house retail intelligence unit at NetElixir, which has been engaged in conducting advanced consumer insights research. And also, we have global search marketing capabilities and have driven proven results for search marketing accounts in over 40 countries worldwide. So here's just a sampling of some of the clients we've worked with. We've really had a focus on online retail and also have broken into the travel industry as well. So about NetElixir University. We were launched in 2012 with a vision of democratizing the digital marketing industry through exceptional knowledge and expertise sharing. And our goal here is to share best practices in retail and digital marketing with 10,000 businesses worldwide by 2015. And we invite you to join us on our LinkedIn group, NetElixir University. So today's speakers are going to be Udayan Bose. He's actually our founder and CEO at NetElixir. He founded PartyBingo.com, and he's been a guest lecturer at the Johnson School of Management at Cornell University, as well as City University of New York, Baruch, and the Indian School of Business. Our other speaker today is going to be Don Rodriguez. He has over 20 years of experience as a marketing executive with companies like Dell and Accenture. He actually teaches marketing classes at Rutgers University in their MBA program, and his belief is that marketing is all about the math, and that stems from his first professional career as an electrical engineer. So our presentation today is going to be divided into 3 sections. The first section will be the overview, and we'll be covering analytics, debunking the myth, the importance of, so what do we do? And that will be covered by Udayan. Then will be the execution, how to use site search data to identify gems, and how a $50 million business cut their cost per lead by 44%. And Udayan and Don will be covering that together. And then lastly, we'll be discussing a case study, a step-by-step guide in event tracking, and a 10-point Google Analytics checklist, and Don will be discussing that today. So next, I am actually going to pass it off to Udayan, who's going to cover our overview. Udayan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Marin. So what we are going to be discussing, me and Don, over the next about 25-30 minutes, we are going to share with you some proven ideas as well as which have been validated by our team regarding analytics. But before we even get into that, let me start by debunking some of the myths that sort of abound in our space. So 3 web analytics myths that I wanted to discuss and thereafter debunk. The first one is the most common one. The web analytics software will give me all the answers. The second myth is data equals insights. The third myth, web analytics is all about science and not arts. So I keep on sort of hearing this all the time that we have installed, let us say Omnichare or Adobe, we have installed Core Metrics or IBM, we have installed Google Analytics, and we sort of get all the answers. But honestly speaking, in our experience over the last 9 years working with a wide range of companies from retail to B2B to travel to financial services, we have found that there are 3 things which become exceptionally important, even much more important than just the software that you may have installed on your system. The first one is, do you know what are the right questions that you need to ask? The second, do you know as to where can you find the answers? The third, the answers, unfortunately, will not really just sort of happen because you grabbed maybe 2 or 3 pieces of data. Web analytics and gaining insights is all about piecing or connecting those data points so as to build or create a story which addresses a problem in a scientific, mathematical, proven, and in certain cases predictable manner. Let me get on to the second myth. Again, during our conversations, we have heard it all the time that data equals insights. Just because I am sort of sharing data, I'll sort of have all the insights. Unfortunately, that is absolutely not the case. The first thing which we sort of keep on, and I'll sort of keep on emphasizing this through my presentation, what exactly is the story that you think your data tells? Because unless and until you have the story in place, unfortunately, just sort of having a lot of data and bragging about it will not really help you in any way. The second, what is the actionable outcome that you are sort of trying to gain from the data? Honestly speaking, a data and the analysis and analytics and software, do whatever it may, if you are unable to really come up with a very specific plan of action, implement and execute the action, it does not help the business at all. The third one, when you are really building the story, when you are sort of coming up with those actionable outcomes and the points, always think, have you really considered each and every angle? We have seen many times people jumping onto a conclusion just because they sort of didn't bother to look at and question the various aspects around the web analytics data. Data is great. I mean, a lot of people love data. I am myself exceptionally passionate about data, but I absolutely hate when people jump into conclusions based on insufficient data, inaccurate data, not knowing as to what are the questions to ask, and not really piecing together all the pieces, not connecting all the dots so as to tell a story which is convincing enough. Convincing not just to you, because that would be more of what you call in psychology a confirmation bias. Convincing that it is able to solve a pertinent business problem. Let me try to debunk the last myth. There is a lot of discussion, and I sort of keep on probably meeting analytics people every day. And one of the things which sort of strikes me when people start bragging about us, how mathematical and how scientific it is. We have seen time and again, and I have personally experienced it over about 15 years that I have been in the online industry, that there is a huge premium which needs to be placed on creative thinking. I mean, you guys may have heard of the famous concept of design thinking, which was very clearly promoted and popularized by IDEO. You may have also heard of things like creative confidence, looking at a particular thing from different perspectives. My request to all of you out there who have even an iota of interest in analytics is, please apply creativity. There is no single solution that you can or that you should get to till the time you are absolutely convinced that you have exhausted all the potential possible areas through your creative outlook and the creative brainstorming process. The second thing, as we know understandably, despite our best interest, 1 plus 1 in analytics is often not equal to 2. So not everything is linear, not everything is so cut and dry. Analytics is a huge indicative tool that you have, or it is a great indication, sign, trend, etc. There are a lot of things which are involved, which makes analytics so much exceptionally powerful and so exciting as well. And the last one is focus more on the direction and accuracy. This is the same thing I was talking about. I have seen so many times, so many companies get just stuck on, is 10.47 the right CPA or is it 10.53? It doesn't matter as long as you have the direction and the trend. Are you able to come up with an actionable outcome by observing the trend? If not, honestly speaking, you should just junk your analytics software. It is of absolutely no use for you. Let me move on to the importance of, so what do we do about it? And you would sort of find through our presentation, we have focused, both me and Don, on the actionable part of this, because if the analytics data does not really prompt or provoke you into an action, honestly speaking, that is crap. So I just wanted to sort of emphasize this again through a very pertinent example. And as a company which specializes in search marketing, we have taken an example that I would like to share with you, which will help you, the search marketers or the analytics guys out there, to expand your keyword list or generate long tail keywords in a much more data centric and a much more insightful manner. So the goal is expand the keyword portfolio to increase or maximize your reach by mining the site search data. Let me repeat this just for clarity. I am sure that all of you probably have site search. The problem that I'm going to be sort of discussing and the solution that I'm going to be presenting will enable you to use that site search keyword data and help you use that to generate paid search advertising or search marketing keywords. So the first step in terms of, so what do we do about it, starts with a goal. Do you have a measurable, time-bound goal in mind? You have to be very precise in terms of defining the goal. Absolute numbers are always welcome, they are always better. Once you have defined the goal very precisely, I want to expand reach by generating keywords using my site search keyword or search query data. The second point is KPIs. You have generated something, you want to sort of measure as to where exactly you are going. Are you sort of progressing in the right direction or not? So KPIs are invaluable. How exactly do you select these site search keywords? So we use two very simplistic mechanisms. The first is, what is the site search conversion value? What is the dollar per site search result? The second, what is the volume of unique searches per site search term? So per site search, how many searches have really happened within, again, a particular time frame? So what we are looking at is three very specific points. The first one is measure. So you have to measure the average site search value and average conversion rate. The second, you have to choose the right numbers. Let me emphasize this because this is one of the most important components in our entire presentation. Choosing or selecting the right numbers. And the third, you understandably have to benchmark. You can't really select all the site search keywords and populate and create those keywords. What is your benchmark and how exactly do you really select the high performers? That is done. Let us move on to the next stage. So you have the data now, site search from your Google Analytics platform. Now what do you do? Add the high performing site search keyword to a keyword traffic estimator. Simple. I mean, Google traffic estimator helps. Use the opportunity analysis table that we'll be sort of presenting on the next slide to identify what I call the gems. Gems is basically a keyword that you will be able to advertise on for a minimal cost, but you can expect a significant revenue. So this is like almost like those aha keywords, or almost those fabulous keywords which can make you a lot of money, but you're not spending as much. So again, the three things to be considered as you are really implementing this particular suggestion or just addressing, so what do you do, is what is the action that you are taking? So what will you do about it? What do you do with the site search keywords? The second, you have already chosen a certain thing that you want to, approach that you want to take. So what is the rationale behind it? What is the logic behind your taking a certain approach? Why do you really want to use site search keywords to generate the long tail paid search keyword? And what is the expected outcome? So that is where the traffic estimator and the table that I'm going to be presenting on the next slide will help you understand. Again, we will be sort of specifically reserving about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it takes to answer all the questions. My request is, and that's what our purpose of me, Marin, Don for today's presentation is, I really want all of you to understand each and every concept that we are still presenting to you. It's very, very important because these have really worked time and again over the last 9 years that I have run the company. So using the site search data to identify gems. So on the top, you would see that this is the typical Google Analytics page, right? We have highlighted the e-commerce segment because that's literally the button or the tab that you sort of click on. And then you, on the left side, see that this is site search section. There you select by clicking on the search terms. So click 1. After you get into Google Analytics, click on the e-commerce. Click 2, get onto the site search section. Click 3, look at the search terms. And at that point in time, you will be able to really sort of come up with all the keywords, all the site search keywords. You will also be able to come up with total number of unique searches, the revenue, the transactions, the average order value, the e-commerce conversion rate per search value. Then let us select a random reporting month, right? So site search term with higher than average per search value. So that's one criteria or one KPI or one metric that we use to filter and using the benchmark that we have internally. The second is identify all the keywords which have a higher than average conversion rate. So again, let me repeat. You sort of go into the site search section. You click on the search terms. Step 3, get those reports out where you have the average per search value. You can very easily generate the reports from analytics. Step 4, filter them for average conversion rate as well. So once you do that, you sort of move on to using this table. So let me try to explain the table on the top first. So this basically has the site search terms that you have identified. We have identified 2 terms here. We also have been able to identify the per site search value of each of these terms as calculated, again, Google Analytics, using Google Analytics. You have identified 2 keywords which are exactly in line with the site search terms that have been identified. You also have been able to identify the monthly searches using the Google Traffic Estimator tool. You are able to do the same, that $4.71.66 by using the Traffic Estimator tool. You, at that point in time, just make an assumption. Since it's more of a B2B, 1% click-through rate is pretty good. You look at a conversion rate, we have taken 4%. I mean, that we have just taken our average client conversion rate. Let us just put it for the non-brand terms. And thereby, you can very easily calculate the revenue, right? So from that perspective, you can also calculate the spend as well. So effectively, what you have done, you have basically used the overall report from Google Analytics, set very specific metrics, set those benchmarks, which really help you to filter those keywords, populate the identified keywords into this particular grid or table, and thereby also try to project or predict as to what exactly is the outcome or the value that you can expect these keywords to generate for you. And you probably have 2 very strong, powerful, profitable, and great revenue driving keywords that you may not really essentially have considered earlier. So through this example, our purpose is showing that a lot of the sections of Google Analytics or any analytics software, when you say Google Analytics, I mean, please take it as any analytics software, can be and should be used by marketers to have a significantly higher impact across multiple marketing channels, right? And that is what our purpose is in terms of constantly highlighting and emphasizing the importance of what do you do about it. So what do you do about it? So this is typically an example. In this case, what do we do? We identified, used the site search report and identified some amazing keywords, amazingly powerful keywords, which finally delivered some great results for us. So I would probably end my section with just one quote. And I have taken it from a Harvard Business School, one very famous professor who sort of also is a consultant who, on the analytics side. He mentions that expertise is more important than the tool. Otherwise, the tool will be used incorrectly and it will generate nonsense. Tongue-in-cheek, logical, properly processed nonsense, but nonsense nevertheless. With this, let me sort of hand it over to Don. He'll be talking on a very interesting sort of a topic, one real live case, how a $50 million B2B business, we were able to cut their cost per lead or cost per acquisition by 44% just by using a very simple yet a very powerful feature of Google Analytics called event tracking. Thank you very much. Don, over to you.
Thanks, Udayan. Let me first start by giving you just a little background on the business we're talking about. International Process Plants, which I'll refer to as IPP, is a family-owned business that buys and then resells manufacturing assets that are no longer needed by the original owners. You can think of them as global recyclers of industrial equipment. The focus of the online marketing there was lead generation, and they spent well over $100,000 a year on pay-per-click. This is an overview of the process we used to cut that cost per lead by 44%. It's a process that I'm sure is familiar to many of you on this call. It starts with the Google ad on the left, and that generates traffic to the website. And in this case, what we're trying to do is get someone to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested. And they do that by calling us IPP on the phone, sending them an email, or filling out a contact form. For the legitimate inquiries, they end up getting entered into the CRM system, which then has a typical B2B sales funnel, starts with leads at the top, moves to a qualified opportunity, and then hopefully you get the opportunity to quote and then convert into a new customer. And then we use several techniques here to optimize the cost per acquisition or the cost per lead, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But first, let's highlight the impact that this process had. You can see here that the valid leads that we had going into that CRM system from our pay-per-click efforts jumped 126% with this optimization process. And our cost per lead dropped 44%, almost in half. And this generated, on an annual basis, a savings of well over $100,000. But another point I want to make here, too, is that an interesting part of this was during this time period, we were also shifting the focus of those pay-per-click efforts to drive more leads to the IPP's plant sales department, which was the more profitable and a more competitive online space. It had an average cost per click that was almost 3 times the other campaigns. So we were shifting to more expensive campaigns and yet still had this kind of impact using this method. So here's how we did it. We used this feature called event tracking in Google, which, if you're not familiar, is a way for you to track actions that users take on your site that are not the traditional page view or shopping cart completion that Google Analytics is excellent at tracking. In IPP's case, we put an event call on all of the contact, quote request forms, and every email link on the site. IPP is a bit of an old school business, and they still had email links on the site where you can email employees directly. And that's the case here I'm using to show you how we did this. You can see the click to email Michael that I've highlighted there in red. And here's a view of the source code for that page. And I'll highlight the analytics call, the GAC push as I call it, that we put on that link, on the click action of that link. And you can see there are 3 attributes in there. Track event is actually the signal to Google that this is an event tracking. Plant email and Michael, those are known as category and action, and I'll explain what those mean in a minute. Okay. So you can see from that previous slides, it does take some technical expertise or at least access to source code to implement some of these ideas. The second step, pretty important step, is to define goals in your Google Analytics account for these event conversions. And to refresh your memory, goals are under the admin section, and you click on New Goal, which leads you to the goal setup. Goal setup is a three-step process, and you'll see on this first page, first step, some templates that Google has. If you don't see that when you're doing this, that means that your Google Analytics property has not been associated with one of Google's industry classifications. You can go edit your property and associate with an industry classification, such as automotive or entertainment, and then these templates will show up for you. When you're doing event tracking, you want to click the radio button for custom and then click next. And step 2 is the description. There you enter a name for the goal, probably one you want to recognize easily in your reports to know what kind of event it was. Again, choose event from the radio button menu, click next, and that gets you to the goal detail step. This is where you actually do the mapping of the event call that you placed on your site and Google's goal tracking. So you can see there under event conditions there are 4 attributes: category, action, label, and value. The first 2, category and action, are required. You have to put something there. The latter 2 are optional. So you can see I entered plant email under category and Michael under action, and I called it plant email because I wanted to know what type of lead that email was coming was about. So you click create goal at the bottom and your goal is created, and then you sit back and you let your web traffic generate conversions on those goals. And once you have conversions on those goals, you can move on to step 3, which is probably the most critical step in this process: importing those Google Analytics conversion goals into AdWords as conversion events. That's where the rubber meets the road. There are a couple prerequisites that you have to have in place before you can import data into your AdWords account, and those are highlighted there. And then to start the process, you'll find the conversion option under Tools. So you click on Conversions, and if you have conversions showing up on your goals in your Analytics account, you'll get this nice little reminder that says, hey, you have new conversions available for import from Google Analytics. You click on that Import from Google Analytics button, and you get the All Conversions menu, which will give you a list of all those conversion events that you defined, goals that you defined in Google's Goals section. You check off the ones that you want to import and connect to your AdWords account. Click on the Import button, and they're imported. Now, the next step. Go into your campaign settings under Bid Strategy. This is where the optimization comes in. You want to set your campaigns to target CPAs and not CPCs. So you click on the button next to Focus on Conversions, highlighted there with the red, and that lets you use Google's Conversion Optimizer algorithm to focus on generating conversions on that campaign as opposed to clicks. And in my experience, what we've always done is you just set the initial target. You have 3 options there. We usually just start with the recommended bid, hit save, and move on to the next step. One point before I leave this slide. You need to have a certain amount of conversion history on the campaign before Optimizer can work. I think the threshold is, if I remember right, 15 transactions in the 30-day period. And if you don't have that, Google won't let you adjust the setting to focus on conversions, so it tells you that. So the next step. This is where you adjust your target CPAs by ad group. So I just went and said, okay, give me the default value, the recommended value. Now I'm going to go in and refine these. And I added the word ongoing up here because this process, this targeting by optimizing by CPA is not a set it and forget it process. This is one, like every other campaign you run, requires ongoing maintenance and attention, right? So you can see in this example here, the target CPA is the left-hand column there marked in red. And over on the right, at the top, you have the cost per conversion. And then at the bottom there is the blended cost, the CPA, that this ad group has been producing. There are two things to think about when you're choosing your target CPAs, in my mind. First, you want to keep the target CPA relatively close to the historical value of cost per conversion. So in this example, you can see we had $54 and change as the historical. The target is set to $49. It's about a 10% difference. It's actually the rule of thumb that I have used in the past. Because if you set your target too much below the historical, Google's conversion optimization algorithm will not produce good results. So for example, if this was $65, $49 is probably too low for that first move. This is like a mortar fire honing in on its target. You adjust, you let the algorithm adjust, you adjust again, and you're going to hone in on an optimal cost per lead, so to speak. The second point I want to make about selecting target CPAs is you probably have your ad group set up like most, where you're trying to focus the ad group on a certain product family or service that you're trying to promote and sell. In IPP's case, the price point of the equipment they sold varied from several $100s to several $100,000, and a complete plant sale could be single-digit millions to easily double-digit millions. So it's a pretty wide variety of potential value for the leads that you're generating. So think about the potential value when you're choosing your target CPA. So it's sort of a, you're looking at both factors, right? The historical values, how much can you cut, and then how important is that lead going to be relative to the other leads you're going to generate. And that's how we cut our cost per lead by 44%. Just ongoingly coming in here and adjusting, and we had, I can't remember how many campaigns and ad groups, but constantly tweaking. Every couple of weeks going in there and tweaking and adjusting is how we lowered that cost so dramatically. So here are some useful links from Google on all of the topics covered in that process: event tracking, goals, importing goals into AdWords, conversion optimizer. And now I'm going to move on and talk to you about our Google Analytics scorecard. We have a 10-point scorecard, and this is a snapshot of it. The scorecard is available at that link that you see on the screen. So what is this scorecard? We picked 10 areas of Google Analytics that we think are the aspects of Google Analytics that let you really generate true business value from this really powerful and yet free tool. Some of those elements are foundational. For example, in the screenshot that I've got here, I've got views, page view, and conversion tracking code. Right? Those are foundational elements. But it's like building a house. Right? You have to have a solid foundation before you can construct anything of value on top of that. Other areas are things like goal setup. We talked about channel segmentation, site search integration. So, and it's laid out with a really simple 1 to 4, 4-point scoring, 4 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and then we have definitions for the characteristics. So for example, I'll just read you the one from views because it's probably hard for you to read. The high score of views says you have multiple views, including what I call raw data profile, which captures all data coming from the website. And you have appropriate filters in place to filter out things like internal IPs, query parameters that don't add any value to your reports. Whereas on the other side, the low score of 1, you have 1 view per property defined. And likewise, on down. So basically, the way that you can use this scorecard is you can grade the effectiveness of your Google Analytics setup and usage by going category by category and grading yourself on that scale from 1 to 4. After you're done, I recommend that you highlight the areas where you scored a 1 or a 2 as being the areas where you can make immediate improvement in your use and effectiveness of Google Analytics. And let me wrap up my portion by saying this. I strongly encourage you to get expert help if you need it. I know when I sat on the client side of this business, I used support services from several Google Analytics experts, and it was invaluable. So I strongly encourage you to think about doing the same. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marin for our Q&A.
All right, thanks so much, Don. That was fantastic. Just want to mention, we know we've overshot the time a little bit for the allotted half hour today, but given the importance of the content, we really felt it was essential for us to ensure that you really understood and went over things in detail. So if you are interested in the analysis that we've mentioned, our data scientists can grade your Google Analytics setup and usage. If you're interested, you can contact me directly by email, marin@netelixir.com. And we can actually open it up for questions. I know we are a little bit over, but we wanted to make sure we gave you the opportunity to ask questions as well. So for anyone who has any questions, feel free to mention them now. All right, I'm going to start filling the questions here. Right there, 1 second. All right, first question is, are there other ways that event tracking can help?
Sure. Yes, I forgot to mention that. We used it obviously for tracking email links and contact forms. Other common applications for event tracking are, tracking downloads of content such as like PDF files. They're used a lot to track interaction with videos you might embed on your website, printing off of coupons, and I personally used it to count email signups on a website as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, another question. To have you guys do the analytics scorecard for us, what information do you need? All right, so you go over what information they need to provide if they'd like the analytics scorecard.
First of all, we'll need read access to your analytics account, and we put a mutual NDA in place to do that. Our scientists will probably take about 7 days to complete the grading. There will be a couple questions they'll have for you about your use. And I think that's about it. You just email Marin.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. With CPA bids going away, what is the alternative for this?
I think one thing that we can sort of do, Marin, is basically almost like compute or calculate the approximate CPA as such. The CPA bidding mechanism, Google sort of tested it out. It was somehow really not really a huge success. So what we would recommend is just using the same CPC model, but have a certain percentage rate conversion associated with this, which really gives you an estimate of the number of leads that you can calculate. So it becomes a derived CPA almost. So essentially, you are still controlling and changing the bids by estimating the overall CPA as such.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I might add that you could also use, automatic bidding tools, such as, the automatic bidding mechanisms that we have in algorithms we have in place in our NetElixir platform as well.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So I do see some other questions coming in. We want to be respectful of your time. So if there are any other questions, feel free to contact us after the webinar today. And anyone who we didn't get to, we'll definitely reach out to you personally. If you'd like to learn more about NetElixir's search marketing services and technology, you can email me, marin@netelixir.com. And to download our 10-point Google Analytics Efficiency Scorecard, you can go to netelixir.com/scorecard. And as always, feel free to follow us on Twitter @NetElixir.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.